Hi there, welcome to Transcona Trailer Sales. Welcome to your 2025 Forest River Surveyor 260 BHLE. We are just going to start off at the back of the unit. If you notice up top, you're pre-wired for an observation camera as well as a liquid collapsible stair system. If you'd like to get set up with either of those, you can contact the parts department and they'd be more than happy to help you out. Great additions to your camper. You got your spare tire located right at the back. Also down at the bottom here, you have a 2-inch receiver, but there is a sticker on there, just letting you know that the weight capacity is about 300 pounds for that. So really, realistically, it is just good for a bike rack, so just keep that in mind whenever you are using it. Coming to the back here, you're gonna find your main 50 amp twist lock connection. Just take a note of the silver strip on this side. It does line up with the silver strip on that side. Once you get that lined up, you can push it into place, 8th turn to lock it in, and then you got that threaded collar to really lock it down. If you follow the cord back, you do have your standard 50 amp plug-in. Now, a lot of campsites in Manitoba may not have 50 amp service, so that's why we do include this 30 amp dog bone adapter. Just keep it in mind whenever you are using it. If the unit were to be equipped with 2 air conditioners, you can only run 1 at a time. But this unit does only have 1, so on 30 amp supply, that is plenty of power. Got your cable satellite inlets, and then right down below that, you do have your black tank flush. Now, before you're using that, always making sure you read the caution sticker. It's just letting you know that to use it, you do have to have your sewer hose connected and your black tank valve open. The reason being, if you're pushing pressure inside of that tank and that pressure has got nowhere to go, it could expand that tank to the point of cracking. The point of the black tank flush is if you're noticing false monitor panel readings or you're just noticing some odor, it's a good way to flush out that tank to keep things cleaner. If you come right down below, you do get that twist on cap that you have to twist off. Pull it off. You just take a note of the ears on either side. The sewer hose is going to have the same ears and they line up with the notches like so. Click and lock into place. You got your gray valve and then your black valve. You always want to empty your black valve first. This will be your dirtiest water filled from your toilets. Then you can come behind that with your gray valve. It's typically a little cleaner water filled from your sinks and your showers. And then in this corner, as well as all 4 corners of the unit, you do have stabilizer jacks. So the way those work are, you do have a 3/4 inch drive nut here at the end. We include the tool inside the front compartment to run this down to the ground. Once the foot does contact the ground, just give it another 8/4 turn to snug it up. It's going to take any bouncy sway you see we have in the unit right now away. But just keeping in mind, they are stabilizing jacks. They're not leveling jacks. If you try and use them like so, there is a risk of you bending them. And the same goes for if you were to run them down, up or down with a cordless impact. Just keeping in mind how much torque you do put on them. Coming a little further ahead on the driver's side here, you get your fresh water connection. So if you pull that cap off, you can put a garden hose in there, turn it on, and fill up your fresh tank in case you're out boondocking or your campsite doesn't have water. You can also use the siphon method if that works better. You do have your city water connection, so if you're at a site with service, you can just thread a garden hose in there, turn it on. It's going to pressurize all those lines without the need to run your water pump. And then right down below the floor, this guy here is going to be the drain for your fresh tank, and that's how you drain all the water out. And then you do have your 2 low point drains. So the purpose of those guys is, if you don't want the water going stale or stagnant and you're leaving the unit for a while, you can crack those guys open. It's going to try and drain as much water out of those lines as possible. It's also really handy in case you were to be servicing anything to do with any water lines. And once you're done winterization, cracking them open to allow most of the antifreeze out of the lines is always a good idea. Got your furnace exhaust. Whenever the furnace is running, it's going to be blowing out hot air out of here. So whenever you do put this back on, always making sure you do line up the rubber gasket. Failure to do so, it could cause that to bind up like so. And in that case, you burn that gasket and we don't want that. You got your power switch right here in the corner. That does supply 12-volt power to the thermostat inside. And then if you've had a camper before and did the winterization yourself, you're probably going to remember some bypass valves because there's a tank water heater and you don't want antifreeze going inside the system. This system is the total opposite. You want to run antifreeze through the system, and once you're done with your winterization process completely with all the rest of the taps in the unit, you're just cracking this pressure relief valve and leaving it cracked open for the duration of winter. So that way once the antifreeze does start gelling up during those extremely cold winter months, it has a place to go and doesn't expand inside the coils and crack. Like I said, just lining up that rubber gasket whenever you put that back into place. In this side here, you do have a storage compartment which goes straight through to the other side. And then behind these screws here, you got screws in each corner of that panel. That panel is going to pop right out of the way. That is where you're going to get access to your water pump for winterization. Once you get the panel out of the way, you'll find that hose. I'm just following the hose back to the bypass valve. You got your 27 AV inside this battery box here. Battery disconnect switch on the wall with it in the on position like it is now. The battery is connected to the unit. If you return it to the off position, the batteries would become disconnected from the unit. And in addition to that, it also disables the rest of the 12 volt inside the system, inside the unit. So if you ever plugged it in and you didn't have any lights turning on or anything, it would be a good thing to look and just check, make sure it's on. You got your two propane tanks right here at the front. Most of the time you can get what you need done by just loosening off the two tabs on top of the cover, moving them out of the way. It gives you access to the top of the tanks, but let's say the tanks are empty and you want to change them. Just slide the cover off and you get access to those tanks. You also get access to this regulator and the selector valve with it pointed this way. Obviously you're going to be drying off this tank. If this tank were to go dry, you can close it up, disconnect it, switch this over to this side and start running off this tank while this one's getting filled up. Then to turn it on, it's counterclockwise like any standard barbecue. Opening it up all the way nice and slowly, not too fast. Opens up the flow of propane to the unit. Tongue jack up front, manual override right underneath that top cover in case it were not to work for whatever reason. Inside this compartment here, you're gonna have that starter kit, which is where your sewer hose is located. It's brand new. You get a 10-foot sewer hose, 15-foot water hose. It also has that 15-amp park adapter in case you need to go down from the 30. Just keep it in mind whenever you are using this, you won't be able to run your air conditioner. It is just to run your fridge and your lights. Then also inside here, you're gonna get the top of your griddle. You're gonna have the griddle itself. And then you're also gonna have the water hose and the propane quick connect line. And right below that, you got your manual override for your you got your manual tool for the stabilizer jacks, and then this guy is going to be a manual override for the slide out. So if you're coming over here, sticking this guy through this hole, there's going to be a shaft on the other side coming out of the frame there. You're just going to have to line that guy up. Once it does click into place, it's going to allow you to manually run your slide out in or out. Just keep it in mind, there is a lot of tension on it, so it's not going to be easy, but that does give you a second option. And the nice little thing for very good is they do include that little tool to go into a drill or impact. Just keep it in mind if you are using this, be careful with how much torque you put on it. We're going to come to the rest of this stuff during the setup once we make our way further down the unit. Got your furnace exhaust, noticing it is right underneath the awning. So if you ever have anything in front of it and running your furnace, making sure you do move it, because otherwise you probably will melt it. This little flap on the side here is for the range hood that's inside, and because you want to be evacuating those propane fumes as you're making them, you just gotta pull that once you get to your campsite. It unlocks that flap, allowing you to evacuate those fumes. And then whenever you go traveling again, push on the two rubber tabs. It's gonna lock it back into place, that way you're not getting any excess dust inside the unit. You got two 110 plug-ins, cable satellite outlet, and then you got your last exterior compartment. It does flip open and locks into place. Now the two front ones are on magnetic latches. This one will seem like it is, but it isn't, because you're gonna pull on it, it's not gonna work. You do just have to pull on that tab to unlock it. You got your mini fridge here. Now this does only work if you're hooked up to shore power, so just keep that in mind. And then you got this guy here, pulling it out, it comes out towards you. There's stuff that slides out on either side. This side's gonna be for that bucket, this side's gonna be for your, this side's a little table, and the griddle goes on top. We're gonna go get that now just so I can show you something up. So you can set your bucket inside the holder. Now you got your griddle. You're going to notice there's 4 holes on either side, with this one being smaller. The reason being is they want you to undo this leg in the back corner here. Put the rest of them all into their spots. And then you're going to take this one and come from underneath, just so you do lock it down onto that tabletop. In case someone were to bump it for any reason, if it were to be running, it's not going to catch fire or anything. Next, you're going to take your propane quick connect line, unraveling it, taking the dust caps off. I always recommend doing those dust caps up whenever you're not using it. That way you're not getting any debris inside the line. run this end down to the bottom, and this end through this. Take the rubber cap off. You're gonna pull back like any standard airline. Push and insert it onto the regulator. I always like assisting the regulator just so you're not putting any excess strain onto it. Then you can follow this line down where you're gonna find the quick connect line that is plumbed right to your front propane tank, so you don't have to carry an extra one with you. Undoing the dust cap on that side. It's the same way as the top side works, just pulling back on the collar, pushing it, lock it into place. Once it's locked into place, you can open up the flow of propane as an added safety measure. You can't operate the coupler with the flow of propane open, so you do have to close it to disconnect it, and taking it down would be the total opposite. Once you have the flow of propane going, you can light up your griddle, and then you got your little exterior shower sprayer deal in case you're the one doing dishes or even shower outside. You got notches on either side. They line up with the corresponding spots right here. Push, twist, lock into place. You got sprayable hot and cold water from this, and this is just your standard water hose end. So in case you didn't like this one, you could just go with a different option. You've got it on there. And now for the best part, you're just going to take this assist handle, push it up fully 90 degrees, allow it to lock into place. Then you can open up your door. The door does have to open all the way to get your stairs down. Get your stairs down, you're pulling on the latch. Stairs are going to come towards you. You do have adjustable feet for different levels of campsites, so you can have nice and level stairs. Just counting the slots on either side, set those guys down. Now, taking the step on inside, first thing you notice off on the left is that fire extinguisher, which is pretty much just like pull the pin and shoot while undoing the strap. And then up on the wall, you got your main kind of control center. So you're gonna have an interior light switch, which turns on all the main living space lights. Then you got a porch light, turns on a porch light outside. And the awning LED light switch, of course, turns on the strip light underneath the awning. To run the awning, hitting and holding the extend button, the awning is going to start rolling its way out. Now, always try to be visible when it is coming out. That way, you're not running it into anything in case you can't go too far. Now, unfortunately, today you cannot get this all the way out, but it will go most of the way out, so I can show you a couple other features. Whenever you have this awning out, you're always going to want to try and keep an eye on the wind speeds, because once they get to about 5 km/h, the wind's going to start shaking. You're going to want to make sure you bring the awning out. We don't want you to run ripping your fabric or bending your arms. Now, when the awning would be hit its full extension is when you would see back the metal tube and a little flap hang down. Sometimes that flap can get stuck, so you might just have to retract it, push it back out again to try and get it to come down. Now, if we were to start bringing, take any arm fronter here, pull down at the center. It's going to change the pitch of the awning head, allowing water to now run off. Now, if you like that angle better, it's going to allow for more shade underneath. Of course, you can do the same thing with the front arm. Just making sure you do push both arms back to straight before you bring the awning in. Now, let's say it was raining, the winds were getting aggressive, so you want to bring the awning in because you don't want to wreck it. Now, the awning is wet, so at your next earliest convenience, once it's nice and sunny outside, you're going to want to put the awning back out so it does have time to dry. Otherwise, you do run the risk of accelerating the growth of mold or mildew. Next, you do have your slide out operation switch. Out, in, pretty self-explanatory. Once it hits its full extension, you can hear the motors wind up and click. Unfortunately, today, I'm not going to make it all the way out because I don't have enough room on the other side. But once you heard the clicking, you can let off the button, and that's at your full extension. It is an added measure if you want to be super careful. Just making sure that the rubber seal is touched right up against the back of the wood slide out. That way you're stopping water from making its way inside. Pushing and holding that button, and again, of course, being mindful of what's on either side of the slide, inside and out. The reason I do say inside is sometimes things do tend to shift during travel. Now, I know sometimes slide outs can be difficult to see either side with them in from the doorway, so just being visual while you are putting it out. Now, I know I'm not going to be able to get it out much further than that, so that's where I'm going to stop today. Now, you're going to notice just right off the bat inside the front door here, you got a bunch of different travel straps. Always making sure whenever you're traveling, you do have these latched up, so it's stopping things from swinging freely, including these doors. We don't want to be causing any damage to anything. Inside the bedroom, the light switch is just on the other side here on the wall. Turns on the main living space lights. All the blinds in unit do work the same way. They just sit where you leave them. One quick pull will allow them to retract back up. Now, this is a fire exit, so you're just going to pull that pin, pull the tab, the screen's going to pop right out of place. Then you can take your handle, push it, hop on out of the unit. Now this does have tons of storage all throughout this unit. Just always being careful of drains, water lines, and wiring. We don't want to be affecting any of that. Now if you want to mount a TV in the bedroom, you got your TV backer here. It's an extra support wood block they put there. That's where you're going to want to mount that. And you got your cable satellite outlet as well as your 2 plug-ins to plug something in. Now you have a vent lid right here in the main bedroom, clockwise to open that up. Once you get it open all the way, if you were to start traveling, you do run the risk of damaging the lid, especially depending on the wind speeds. And if it were to start raining, it's going to get pretty wet inside of here. We do sell vent covers here at the shop. It's a cover that goes over top of this vent. It's going to allow you, if you forget it open, you're not going to be running the risk of damaging anything. And of course, if it were to start raining, it's going to stay nice and dry and leave it open in case it was a hot day. So if you'd like to get set up with that, you can contact your parts department. Now, the main reason this vent is here, not the main reason, but one of the other reasons the vent is here is you are prepped for a second AC, hence why you have the 50 amp service. So if you ever wanted to get set up with that, just contact your parts department and they can put together a quote for you, but you are prepped for it. You got accent lightings underneath the bed on either side. Of course, you got plugins and USB and USB-C chargers, little cubby spaces on either side with some cup holders as well. Really nice bedroom space, picking up the foot of the bed and lifting. It's where you're going to find your central vac, all your hoses and everything. It's also a really good spot to store any extra blankets you were to have. Now, stepping into the main living space, you got your thermostat right here on the wall. This is going to control your air conditioner and furnace. Pushing and holding the power button turns it on. It's going to bring you to your last setting that you were on. So in this case, it's going to be fan. Now with the fan setting, you're just moving air around with the air conditioner. There's no heating or cooling involved, and you can change the speed just by pressing the fan button. One more time, bring you into dry. Now that's just a dehumidifying mode, so it's going to try and take as much moisture out of the air as possible with turning the air conditioner on and off and running that fan. Pushing it one more time will bring you into cool. Now whenever you're in cool, up or down at any time, just change your set room temperature that you desire. And now if you are in the low fan speed option or the high speed fan option, the fan on the air conditioner is going to run regardless of what the room is set to. Now if you push the button one more time, you get high. Another time you get A meaning automatic. So it's going to create an on-demand system. So obviously we got the room set to 69. It's obvious the thermostat is going to be set so the room is colder than 69 degrees. So that's why the air conditioner is off. If we were to lower that down a little bit, it's going to kick the air conditioner back on. So like I said, it is an on-demand system. One more time, we'll get you over to the heat option. Now that's going to kill your air conditioner and fire up your furnace. Your furnace only has 1 fan speed, and the furnace moves all its air through the 4 coils we have throughout the unit. And pushing that button again would bring you back into your fan option. Pushing and holding the power button turns it right off. Now, because the furnace runs off propane, you got your LP detector right here near the ground. If this guy ever starts going off, just turn off the main supply of propane at the front of the unit, open up some windows and vents and get some fresh oxygen inside of here, because you're just getting to worrisome levels. Now, an extra note, it is very sensitive to cleaning chemicals, so if you're ever cleaning around it and it started going off, use your best judgment, but it could be that. Now, when it comes time to the air conditioner, you do have a couple different methods you can run it to. You could run it with these louvers closed, in which case it moves its air through all the ceiling ducting you have throughout the unit, or you can open these up, in which case it'll dump all its air right here into the main living space. So the best way to use that is dumping it into the main living space when you first get to the campsite. Once you cool off the space, you can close it up and it will push its cool air throughout the unit. Then you notice you get these tabs here. If you pull down on the tabs, the white piece is going to snap out of place and the black filter should come with it. It's always a good idea to give that a quick blow with some compressed air every once in a while, because once it starts getting dusty, it's the intake vent, so it could affect your airflow. One thing I forgot to mention up here on the wall is going to be your solar controller. Now there's a bunch of different settings you can go into and play with, but it gets pretty in depth, so I'm going to recommend going over the owner's manual to set up any of those more advanced settings. But we do currently have it set up for your basic charging needs, so that if there's sun outside, applying sun to the solar panel, it's going to be applying a charge to the front battery. Now, it's always a good idea to make sure that you do keep those solar panels nice and clean. I recommend using a soft microfiber towel and warm water. Try not to use any chemicals on them, otherwise you do run the risk of damaging them. You got your sound system right here on the wall, pretty much just like home, other than the fact that you have zone 1 and zone 2. Zone 1 is interior speakers, zone 2 is exterior speakers. Storage all around, sink with hot and cold water. Spare includes a couple cool things like a bottle opener here. They also have a nice cutting board and a little cup they throw in as well, with some knives, different knife storage. You got your microwave, which is pretty much just like home, not much I'm going to show you there. And then you do got your range hood, which I always recommend running whenever you're running your stove or your oven, so that you're evacuating those propane fumes as they happen. Flipping back your cover, and of course being careful because it is glass. You don't want to break it. And of course you want to make sure that you allow time for this to cool down before you flip it back down. So since we're going to be firing up the stove, we'll make a couple notes about the propane. Whenever you have the propane system off, and it's been off for a while, it does allow air into the system, and it gets even more air into the system if you were to disconnect one of the bottles. So I always recommend, if you've had the propane system off, come and light up your stove first thing, because it's the quickest, easiest way to purge all the air out of the lines. The reason I say that is because if you go to fire up your water heater, your furnace, those only try lighting themselves a few times before they're going to throw a fault code at you. And if you don't know what the fault code means, it can cause some frustration. And we do try to keep that to a minimum and keep your camping experience to the best it could be. So just come into your stove. It's going to fire up right away, of course, today, just because I did have the system running earlier. Sometimes it can take a few minutes, so you just have to be patient with it. But whenever you're running any of the gas valves, always making sure that you're hitting that sparker every few seconds, so you don't have any buildup of gas in your combustion. We all like to keep our eyebrows and eyelashes, but you'll see it does hold its own. Sometimes you saw that last burner, it can take a few tries. And for the oven, it's pretty much the same thing. Just pushing it in, turning it over to the high/light option, pushing and holding, hitting the igniter. Down below, you're going to see the little tiny gas orifice. Now, the oven takes exceptionally long to purge just because the gas orifice is so small for the pilot. And there you go, you're gonna get that pilot lit. Now just holding it in for another few seconds, then you can let off. Once it can hold its own without you pushing in the knob, you can turn it up to your desired temperature, and it does fire right on up. Now in addition, you do got this little switch right here on the side. You can turn on some illumination knobs, and then the second option is the illumination knobs plus the oven light. You're gonna have a lot of different accent lighting throughout the unit. They are just gonna be on their own center push buttons. You got your TV mounted here. Everything is going to be mounted through the back. Now it's going to be hard to see in the video, but there's going to be a cable satellite outlet which is already hooked up. And there's going to be a little black button behind it that turns that green light on. Whenever the green light's on, it's telling you that the antenna is on the roof. Now that also is going to improve radio frequency and cell phone frequency, so I typically just recommend leaving that on whenever you're using the camper. But making sure to try and remember to turn it off, because it does draw battery power while you're away if you were to leave it. Storage all around. You got 2 recliner chairs. Another cool little addition they threw in this year, these cool little TV dinner trays. They do pop right out of place in case you didn't want them there, and you get to keep your cup holder as well. The recliner mode, you just got to pull on the black tab on either side and it'll extend out. You got your refrigerator here. To get it to open, you're just having to push in on the travel latch. It's going to pop on open. The controls for the freezer are up top. The controls for the fridge are down below. Coming down here, you got your power button. The little snowflake is going to tell you your different temperatures, 5 being the coldest obviously, and the fastest, 2 being off-grid, so that's going to be the most energy efficient setting to have it on if you were running it off 12 volt. Now when it says fast, if you forgot to turn your fridge on, you want it to cool up real quick, leave it on 5. Once you feel the fridge is pretty cool, you could turn it down to any other desired temperature if you wanted to, and then the power button is there. You just have to hold it for 3 seconds to turn it off. Again, whenever you're traveling, making sure that the fridge doors are latched properly so they're not going to swing open on you during travel. Now right down here, you got your main fuse and breaker panel. Popping that guy open, Whenever a breaker trips, it's going to sit in the middle, so you do just have to turn it off and then back on again to reset it. You have all your corresponding fuses right there on your right, and there'd be a little red indicator light in case one did pop. Now you're going to notice we did have a door right at the back of the unit. The reason that is there, I like to think it's for bikes. So if you turn that light on, this bottom, you got a double bunk at the bottom. Now you can fold it up in case you were wanting to bring anything along or something like that. And then you do have an extra door in case you would ever need it. USB, USB-C charging ports in both bunks, as well as different lights. And last but not least, we are opening up this door. We can take a step on into the bathroom. The light switch is on the left. It's pretty much your standard bathroom, sink, shower. Nice skylight in there so you can get some natural light. You got your medicine cabinet, nice hangers. Now on the wall, you have a few different things. You got your main GFI plug on the wall here. So if you ever have an outlet that doesn't work, this would be the first place I would look. You got test on the bottom, reset in the middle. Always making sure that that's not tripped. Sometimes they can trip for the oddest reasons. You have your heated tank system here. So turning it on, they're essentially pads taped that are stuck onto the bottom of your tanks. It's for extended camping season when it starts getting to those colder months. Now just keeping in mind, if you are camping below 0 degrees, you're running the risk of things freezing. So even with the tank heaters, just being careful because again, things can freeze. You've got your monitor panel system as well as your water heater and water pump switches. The monitor panel system works pretty simple. You're hitting the different tanks or your battery in this case. It's going to give you the corresponding level. For the battery, the C is going to mean charging, G would be good. And then you got your corresponding tank levels. Water pump switch, turning that on, that's what draws out of your fresh tank. And then you get your water heater switch, turning that on, turns on the thermostat to your water heater. Now you can turn it on and off using this button, which is what I recommend, or you can leave this button on and use this. But the reason I'm saying to use this one is because if you were to leave that on and you left the unit, it's going to be drawing battery power because there's that little light on. Water heater, pretty simple. You can change your set temperature by pushing up or down, Celsius and Fahrenheit, with the press of a button. If you were to turn on a little tap, there's going to be a little faucet head dripping, looking like it's dripping water. Then there's going to be a fan, and then when the flame goes is when it's going to start creating hot water. It takes about 10-20 seconds sometimes for the hot water to start coming through, but it's pretty instantaneous. Other than that, that is going to be it for this unit here. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call.